he just went low. He's in his head. He's in his head. He's open. His head wide open. Cracked open in the face.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mario Mantel's 100 back again with another episode of How's My Team. Got a lot to talk about. Obviously, we got the Titans in one of the last Queensland derbies of the year in terms of the men's team, obviously against the Cowboys. We've got the Titans women's team in Cronulla against the Sharks. We've got the Giants, obviously, in Canberra in the Expansion Cup against the Gold Coast. We've got a whole bunch to talk about. Obviously, Liverpool. We've got, the Cubs, obviously, with the Dodgers. We've got the Cubs with the Blue Jays. We've got the Cubs with the Royals. There's a whole bunch to talk about. So let's get started with the episode because it's going to be a long one. Hopefully not as long as last week, but it's probably going to be a long one. Alright, ripping the Band-Aid off, obviously wearing their jersey. We'll talk about the Titans men's team first. Obviously they're the first ones that technically played, apart from the Cubs, obviously, in the series against the Dodgers. And we'll get to that, obviously, in the miscellaneous segment. But obviously, of my teams in particular, of the main stuff we talk about, the Titans men's team was first. Queensland derby, North Queensland at the Gold Coast against the Titans. One team, obviously, getting beaten by 70, 82 points to 12, ended up being the final score in that game. Obviously, that was the Cowboys, and then a 36-point loss, obviously, for the Titans last week against the Wires. So, both teams under pressure. And the Titans, they shit the bed and played terribly. 30 points to 8, the Cowboys over the Titans. I had a feeling that the Cowboys would probably win. I had some hope that hopefully the Wires game was an outlier, and it seems like, especially with Zane Harrison being injured very late last week, obviously we had that update a couple of days after the video actually went up for How's My Team last week. He's out for the rest of the season. He's getting surgery on his, I think it was on his ankle, but it was a leg issue. So he's out indefinitely. He's out for the rest of the season, which sucks for the Titans. And it showed because 30 points to 8 points against a team that conceded 82 last week. Again, the defense was going to get looked at for the Cowboys in particular. But ultimately the Titans, after the last month and a half that they've had really, really good games, they kind of really shit the bed and make a lot of errors last week against the Wires, and that didn't help them in any regard in that game in particular. And they were almost just as bad in this particular game as well. I watched some of this game. I didn't watch all of it, but the fact is, in the second half, I turned it off like about three separate times. And yes, tuned back in, but turned it off like 3 separate times in terms of the way that the scoring went on. Luckily, it could have been worse. There was a no try in there halfway through the 64th minute. But apart from that, it was pretty bad in terms of this team's performance in particular. Very disappointing in terms of the Wires, because in terms of the Titans, I should say. The Wires are playing fine. They play today. They play against Penrith tonight. So that's going to be a big game for them, especially considering it's at home at Auckland, which is going to make it even crazier. It's not great. In terms of the way that the game went, it only took 4 minutes for the Cowboys to score. through Jason Taumalolo. Basically just did a running play and immediately where the previous tackle was and just broke the line. In fact, the first 2 tries were basically the same. Jason Taumalolo went through a hole, and Jake Clifford in the 11th minute also went through a hole basically at the same spot in terms of the previous tackle as well. Pretty disappointing from that. I will say Jason Taumalolo, I think it was well over 1,200 days, I think, since he last scored a try. So that's great for him in terms of that. Obviously good on him for getting on the score sheet, because it does take a while. It's just one of those things. So the Titans ended up scoring next in the 27th minute from Philip Sami. In fact, Philip Sami scored both tries for the Titans, and obviously the conversions were missed. Both of them obviously relatively on the outside towards the sideline, so it wasn't the easiest kick, but especially the second one. I feel like Jaden Campbell could have reset and hit the second one, but he didn't. Helam Lukey ended up scoring in the 37th minute, and it was converted as well, with the halftime scoreline looking at 18 points to 4. So 14 points, it was this amount of points on the board, but in terms of the Titans, they weren't too far out of it at that point in time. And what made it a little bit easier for us is that around the 46th minute, both the second try for Philip Sami was scored, and also there was a sin bin as well. Just before that, Jackson Purdue held down, I think it was AJ in a tackle to try and get his side, obviously his side's defense lined up properly. Obviously, he went off for 10 minutes. We only scored 1 try. We could have probably scored 1 or 2 more, but we made so many errors in that. And then obviously when he come back, 2 minutes later, he ended up scoring himself, Jackson Purdue, including a step on Keanu Kinney, and Keanu Kinney just completely missed him. Wrong-footed himself at first, but barely put any effort in. Jalen de Groot tried to tackle him from behind, didn't make up the distance at all, just fell off. And it looked like very much the Titans of old in that particular defensive play, because it was pretty bad. And then, obviously, with the no try, Ruben Cotter, I believe it might have been an obstruction. I'm not 100% sure on that. There was something in there that obviously wasn't deemed a successful play. In fact, I'll score through. Yeah, it was an obstruction by Griffin Neem on that try. And then, obviously, not that long later, Helam Lukey ended up scoring a second try, got a line break towards the centres, I believe, around Jaden Campbell as well. And yeah, it was pretty bad in terms of that. Which made obviously the final score with conversions, all of them being converted, 30 points to 8. So possession was in the favour of the Titans, which is even crazier, 53% to 47%, so it's pretty close. And our completion rate was 83% compared to 76% for the Cowboys as well. So we actually completed really, really well. It's just that a lot of our players we just didn't have any inspiring plays at all, really, in the game. 64% kick defusal compared to 58%. That's in the favour of the Titans. Effective tackle percent, 87 to 86. It's 87 in the favour of the Cowboys, so it's pretty close. 39 missed tackles for the Titans, 37 for the Cowboys, so relatively pretty close in that. 1 intercept, obviously, for the Titans, in the Titans' favour. Fantastic there. Ineffective tackles, 15 apiece for both teams. But errors, Cowboys actually made more errors than the Titans, 13 errors to 10. But penalties conceded 8 to 2 in the favour of the Cowboys. The Cowboys got 8 penalties. We didn't really help ourselves in that regard. We did a lot of stupid shit. 5 ruck infringements to 4 in the favour of the Titans. The Titans having the most there. 1 ruck infringement inside the 10 metres. Obviously against the Cowboys. There's 1 player on report, and then obviously 1 sin bin. But yeah, it was pretty average performance from the Titans. I think even the team sheet, obviously with Zane Harrison being out for the rest of the season, Jalen de Groot went into centre, and AJ Brimson went into halfback, and he played terrible. Like that halving combination between him and Jaden Campbell was absolutely terrible. And I don't think that in the future, I know that they want to have AJ around the ball a lot more. Obviously, if Keanu Kinney is in that fullback, but we need a situation where he can't play in the middle. He can't play at 6 or 7 anymore. In fact, Lachlan Ilias was on the bench pretty much the entire game, was not even put in at all. He ended up being a reserve for the game. It's not good enough. And ultimately, they chopped and changed the team a little bit even before kickoff as well, which didn't help Josh Hannay at all. Because I don't think that's how they were set up at all. And Jalen de Groot, like he played all right in the centres. He tried his best. He almost had a try or two, as did AJ as well. AJ got very, very close to the line. He got tackled just a couple of metres short in that play. Iramia almost had one on the sideline as well. So there was chances for the Titans to actually score more points. They just didn't come. And ultimately, again, 8 points against a team that conceded 82 points in last week. I know the defense was always going to be worked on, more so than the attack for this particular game for the Cowboys, but my God, the Titans looked absolutely average at best. In fact, they probably looked very, very terrible, and I don't understand it. And I feel like AJ Brimson at halfback, that shouldn't happen again. We need Lachlan Ilias to get a shot. I know earlier in the season he didn't do great, but he's been on the fringe trying to get into the side for a little while now. Obviously, Sam Verrills was in the same boat, obviously, with Ollie Pascoe being in at the 9 position. But it's one of those things where we just need some cohesion. And obviously, Lachlan was signed over for that position in particular for a reason. And like Pasco's been great. Obviously, the Cowboys kind of shut him down a little bit. He didn't play crazy good in the game at all. But, Sam Verrills somehow can get into the side, obviously off the bench. And that's great, like ultimately having two players like that. And obviously, AJ could possibly fill that role as well. Like, we could have a situation where he's in around the ball, in around the ruck, as possibly even a hooker or, the dummy half. But at the same time, AJ at 7 and especially AJ at 6 is just not working. Like, we've tried it. We tried it last year as well. It wasn't working at all. We barely won any games last year. We haven't really won that many games with him at 7 or 6 as well. So it hasn't worked for this team in particular. So as much as AJ needs more of the ball, we can't have him at 6 or 7. I'm sorry. It's just not going to work. Lachlan Ilias is there as an option, and we just need to play him. Because Zane Harrison's out, what have we got to lose at this point? Because, he's in that position. Lachlan Ilias plays that position all the fucking time. Especially when he was at the Dragons, when he was at, obviously when he was at the Rabbitohs as well. Like, he's in that position to play in that position, and then they don't use him, and it's baffling. So Gold Coast dropped to 15th, obviously with the Tigers bye being added into the mix. Minus 144 on the for and against now, after obviously 2 batterings in a row. That's like 50 points conceded in 2 weeks, which is not a great sign at all for this team. Next week we play against Newcastle on Sunday. So down in Newcastle, last away trip for the season, with the rest of the games being at home. And yeah, Brisbane this week, Battle of Brisbane against the Dolphins. If they do win, the Brisbane Broncos do win, the Gold Coast Titans will move down to 16th position again. And that's just not good enough. And in fact, they played they played as well as a bottom four team, and I have a feeling that we're not going to get out of the bottom four because obviously Parramatta's got 20 points, we've got 18 points, the Tigers have got 20 points as well, despite obviously all their issues. Ultimately, yes, we're 2 points behind those teams, but again, those teams could possibly win more games than we can. Our draw is not great. Again, I know that I'm gonna talk about the draw, and it's kind of shit that yes, it's all top 8 teams, but we're not playing good enough in the last couple of weeks to play in any capacity to do anything against these teams. Like, you got the Knights, the Sharks, the Rabbitohs, and the Dolphins. That's your last month. That's the last 4 games of the season for the Titans. And they should be playing a lot better. They should be playing a hell of a lot better than they have the last couple of weeks because they have shown it this year. They've shown it multiple times this year in terms of wins as well. Ultimately, we've won some dirty games as well, some very close games. But again, during a season, especially if you're going to get in the top 8, you got to do that. You got to either completely beat teams off the park, or you got to get down into the grind and grind out a really good win, a really close win as well. That happens. We see it with so many other teams. Ultimately, the Bulldogs have done a lot better with that this year in terms of the second half of the season compared to the first. But it's one of those things where Newcastle have done it. Cronulla has stuck in it, and they're in the top 4. They've done it. They've blown teams off the park, but they've also gotten it done when it had to. When they've had to, especially some really good teams this year. They've gotten down into the grind and absolutely grinded it out. Warriors are the same. Roosters are the same, considering that the Roosters have lost so many bloody players over the last few years. It's surprising that they're still in and around the mix, and they're in second place right now. So it's not like we should be well off, because we've seen the effort for this team this season in areas where it should be like we should have been like, oh yeah, we're not going to win that game, and we've won it. We've actually put the work in to win those games. Again, just put Lachlan Ilias in at 7 or 6, either one. Put Jaina Campbell in as the other half, whether it's the halfback or the 5'8", doesn't matter. Just put Lachlan Ilias in that position. Just play that out for the rest of the season, unless one of them obviously gets injured. But play one of them and play both of them in the center, in that center role, like 6 and 7, please, because putting AJ in there, I know he's around the ball, but he's trying to do too much. He's not even having a great season this year, to be honest. It's one of his worst seasons he's probably ever had this year, and it shows. It really is tanking this team, and it's not working in that 6th role or that 7 role. He's been on the centres. He's kind of worked in there a little bit, but his season's been pretty average at best, and it's been pretty terrible in general, and we just need to play better. Against Newcastle, who fucking knows, with obviously Dylan Brown still being out, but the Knights just keep winning. They keep winning games somehow. So I think for the rest of the season, I'm not hoping for really any. I'm hoping for wins, but I don't think we're going to get them. If we do get a win, if we do get some wins, if we get a win, we'll jump out of the bottom 4 at this point in time. The Parramatta Eels are still going to play the Rabbitohs right now. That's a big game for both of those teams, especially the Rabbits, because they're in 8th spot right now. But the Tigers, their for and against is way worse than ours. And unless we get belted in the next couple of weeks, especially obviously the Sharks after that Newcastle game, if we get smashed, that's going to really come up trumps. But, the Eels right now are only in front and only behind us by 35 points at this point in time, obviously before playing that extra game, obviously against the Rabbitohs. But, if we need a lot of teams to get belted and to get out of the bottom 4, for this team to have some sort of situation where they have, some sort of good feeling in being out of the bottom 4 for the first time in a while, we just need to win a game at this point. But I just can't see where it is if the effort from the last 2 weeks is what we're going to have for the rest of the season, we're not going to win any games. I'm sorry to tell you. If we have the effort from the last month and a half, we'll win some games. But it's just been average. And in fact, like I said, those 4 or 5 wins that we've bottled against the Tigers, against Melbourne, against the Dolphins in the first clash there, against Manly in their first game. Obviously, we made up for it in the second game. All those games that we've costed ourselves on, it's a really bad situation for this team because this team could we're out of that bottom 4 position right now with those, at least one of those as wins, as a win in there, if not multiple games. And it's just disappointing to see this team just kind of take 1 or 2 steps forward over the last few months, and even taking a whole bunch of steps forward, and then taking like 5-10 steps back in the last 2 weeks. I don't know where it's gone, but yeah, it's pretty average at best, and it's not even average. But yeah, 30 points to 8, Titans men's team. Just not much else to be said because I've just said my piece already. Alright, Sunday morning. Obviously got to talk about the Titans women's team, and unlike the men's team, they actually did win. That's 5 wins. That's right, 5 wins in a row for the Titans women's team. 24 points to 10 over the Sharks. Great result. Again, this women's team just keeps on keeping on, and ultimately it equals a club record as so many wins in a row. Obviously the record being 5 in a row. But we'll say when it comes to this game, there was a situation of a try that was disallowed early on. In fact, the Sharks ended up trying to score very early in the second minute. That Tiana Penatani-Gray was going over the try line and was called offside, or at least one of the players that was involved in the play was offside. So instead of it being a try very early, ended up being disallowed. They did score late in the 14th minute though, off Miller Ilaro in the 14th minute, and was converted. Then not long after that, in the 18th minute, Phoenix Rain Hippai went straight over the try line, got a good pass in, obviously just went over, scored, and it wasn't converted, and Sienna Ibrahim ended up scoring in the 24th minute, and that also wasn't converted as well. Then Georgia Ravix scored in the 29th minute for the Sharks. That wasn't converted either. And then Sienna Lofipo ended up scoring in the 33rd minute, which was converted for the day, which made obviously the halftime score line 14 points to 10. Though I will say there was one sin bin in the first half. Indy Bostock, she got involved when the referee called for a penalty. Then obviously quick tap, obviously lurched and tried to take the tackle. Obviously professional foul, went off for 10 minutes, so that was not a great play from us in particular. But again, the damage wasn't too bad. Again, like I said, 8th minute, so she come back on the 18th minute, so it was only one try regardless anyway. A lot of pressure from the Sharks. Then in the second half, it was all Titans. Sienna Lafipo scored in the 47th minute. Again, so she scored a double, was converted by Lauren Brown, and then Sienna Ibrahim, obviously on debut, I should say as well, on the wing, scored a double in the 54th minute, which wasn't converted, which obviously made the final score 24 points to 10, and another win for the Titans women's team. In terms of the stats, possession was pretty even between the teams, 52% for the Titans, 48% to the Sharks. Completion rate, 85% for the Titans, 84% for the Sharks. So not too bad, not too much different there. Kick defusal percentage, 67% to the Sharks, 55% to the Titans. Effective tackles, 94% to the Titans to 86% for the Sharks. Wow. Just seeing the missed tackles, 41 missed tackles for the Sharks to 6 for the Titans. So that is fantastic in that regard there. 1 intercept, obviously, in the favour of the Titans, and 10 ineffective tackles to 6, the 10 being for the Titans as well. 5 errors apiece, 9 penalties conceded to 7 in the favour of the Titans with the 9. 1 person on report, and then obviously 1 person in the sin bin. But a great result for the Titans. Obviously, there's some results today that have to change. They could change the table, but at the moment, the Gold Coast are sitting at equal points with both the Sydney Roosters and the Brisbane Broncos with 10, and sitting in 3rd position right now. Won't drop out of 3rd position at all. They won't drop any further because the Warriors obviously are in 4th. And obviously 2 points behind us because obviously we won against them last week, a Magic round. So pretty great performance again from the Titans. Just got to wait for the Broncos and the Roosters to somehow drop some games, and ultimately there will be probably in a couple of weeks' time when they play each other. One of them will probably lose and the other one probably won't. We'll see today. The Roosters have got the Eels, so I don't expect that to be a situation where the Roosters will lose. Raiders and Broncos, if Raiders can show up, especially considering I think it might be at GIO, but I'm not 100% sure. I think Canberra are playing at home, the men's team. Yeah, it's a double header, so maybe with the Raiders, I don't know. If the Raiders from the first couple of weeks can show up, like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, can show up, the result could be really in the favour of the Raiders, but Broncos, usually their outfit's got too many stars on it. Next week, we play against the Dragons at home on Saturday afternoon. It's the first game of the round of the NRLW, so 12:45 start on Saturday. So, yeah, big game against the Dragons to try and extend that winning record to 6 in a row. Obviously, be a club record at that point outright. Before obviously round 8 is the big game. Is Broncos Titans on Sunday the week after on the 23rd of August. So that's a big one because then I think the Roosters and the Broncos play relatively soon because obviously the Roosters play the Warriors in 2 weeks' time, which is going to be an interesting game if the Warriors can keep up their pressure as well. And I think it's towards the end of the season that the Broncos face the Roosters. In fact, I think it actually might be the last round. Yeah, they haven't faced each other yet, have they? No. So I'm trying to find the game that they're playing against each other, and I can't find it for the life of me, because it's not this week. Next week. Sorry, it is next week. I didn't scroll down far enough. But yeah, they play next week. So that's going to be probably one of the biggest games of the season to see who wins out of that. Could possibly go outright top. Obviously, the Broncos will have the pressure on them a little bit because obviously with the amount of stars they have on their side and the fact that the Roosters have not won convincingly in some of their games this year against some opponents, it's going to be up to them to try and stay on top. But again, it's all to play for. But again, Titans sitting behind them in 3rd position right now, equal points at the moment. Obviously, they've got games in hand at the moment. So, yeah, it's going to be a big result from the Titans, obviously, next week against the Dragons. The Dragons, obviously, in 10th spot right now. They do have, I should say, I think they do have a game today as well. They have the Tigers as well at Jubilee Oval. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But, yeah, great result from the Titans women's team, 24 points to 10 over the Sharks. in Cronulla as well. Being away from home makes it 5 wins in a row for them as well. Alright, and we got much more to talk about because the Australia Cup. Wanderers obviously against Melbourne Victory during the week, in the middle of the week between last week and the week before. It was said on what the date was going to be for the game and where it was at. It was at Marconi Stadium, so obviously down in Victoria. Wanderers against Melbourne Victory. And once again, the Wanderers go out very early in the Australia Cup. They go out 3-2 on penalties. So they did actually get to penalties, so we'll say that. But again, they looked pretty average for for a decent amount of the game. In fact, the goals didn't get scored until extra time as well. Harry Sawyer scored in the 97th minute, but Nicholas Milanovic, who is back, scored in the 102nd minute, and goddamn was that a great strike from a free kick. It was fantastic. Went to penalties, and they scored Victory scored 3 penalties, and we scored 2. Milanovic and Borello ended up scoring the penalties for us. I think Alex Gersbach, played for the last one, and it got blocked. Apparently, everybody shot the same way in the penalty shootout for the Wanderers. Not a great look, not a great way to do that, because the keeper was always going to save at least one. So with that, that means that once again, the Wanderers are out very early in the Australia Cup. Pretty disappointing, obviously. In terms of pre-season, you would have thought that they wanted to try to go with more games to get more prep time and more pre-season time. But yeah, it was very average at best on that. Pretty crappy performance again from the Wanderers. And yeah, just look forward to round 1. But that's a few months away now. So yeah. What else is new? Alright, Monday morning, the Giants. So you can tell from the reaction, the result was not great in the second leg of the Expansion Cup against the Suns in Canberra. It was a 2-point loss, though technically it was an 8-point loss to the Suns, with a goal very, very late in the last couple of seconds of the game, which obviously brought the margin back to 2 points. But 79 points to 77, 11 goals 13 for the Suns to 11 goals 11 for the Giants. We'll say it was a very, very cold and wet day in Canberra, so the halftime score was not great for the Giants. In fact, it was only 25 points. So they did get a lot, 52 points in the second half, most of that being from the third quarter. And in fact, actually from both teams, because the Suns did actually only have 35 points at the end of the half. So so they put some on, not too many. Obviously, the Giants put on more, but obviously we're behind by a lot more. But we also did have 2 on the bench, 2 less players on the bench, I should say, with 2 injuries. One relatively early in the first quarter, about halfway through the first quarter, Jaden Laverde went off with a rib problem. Tried to keep playing probably 5-6 minutes after it happened. Went back on to play for a little bit and it just wasn't working. So he went off, he was subbed off, and then before the second half, very late in the first half, Toby Bedford went off with a back problem. So I'm not sure what the extent of his injury is at the moment, but hopefully if it's not too serious, obviously he can play this week coming at home. If not, obviously in the game against Adelaide away. But obviously, we're going to have some more VFL players come up. Again, the VFL side did actually win yesterday as well, so that kind of helps us a little bit. But one thing that ultimately led to this was a lot of intercepts, especially in our defensive 50. We just gave too many chances to the Suns. So the Suns in the last quarter gave us a decent amount of chances, because I'll just break it down, obviously, quarter by quarter as they usually do. 3 goals for the Suns compared to 2 goals for the Giants in the first quarter, so they were behind by 6 points at the start. Then ended up scoring 2 goals and 1 behind for the Suns, and it was 1 goal 3 for the Giants in the second quarter, and they were behind by 10 points at the end of the half. So not ideal. Though in saying that, the Giants did score 5 goals and 1 behind in the third quarter, so very much exploded onto the scene after halftime, very much on the scoreboard. Though in saying that, the Suns also did score 5 goals 3, so they end up actually adding 2 more points to their margin to make it 12 points at three-quarter time. And then they only scored 1 goal and 5 behinds in the last quarter compared to 3 goals 3 for the Giants. Obviously that one extra goal, one of those goals obviously being very late in the game, only a couple of seconds left. But in saying that, the Suns gave us plenty of opportunities. They had a few set shots in the last quarter. Did not hit any of them. There was a couple that actually even missed the lot as well. I think 2 or 3 of them. So missed a lot. But we were just ravaged in the midfield as well. Like Matt Rowell ended up having 40 disposals, which is obviously a career high from him. 17 clearances, 16 tackles, and 10 inside 50s for him. But yeah, considering obviously Toby Bedford was also in the midfield, with him being injured, obviously Tom Green being injured, Finn Callahan obviously a couple of weeks ago being injured as well, Darcy Jones obviously not coming back for this season. There's so many players in and around that midfield area that it's just, we're just struggling. And especially against the Suns. The Suns, they're decent in the midfield. Obviously, with this win, obviously they break a 10-game losing streak, so that also doesn't help the Giants and the fact that they've played the Suns in and broken their streak as well. But all credit to the Suns for getting over the hump, but it just makes things a lot more difficult for the Giants, especially with other results not going our way in terms of other games. Makes it harder for us to make finals. I think we have a very, very, very slim chance of doing that now. I think technically in speaking, every team from North Melbourne up in the table can technically make it. Obviously, North Melbourne being in 13th, so they're behind us right now. Obviously, with the loss, we still stay in 12th position because Carlton ended up winning against St Kilda. They ended up winning by a decent margin, 44 points. Though, in saying that, percentage between Carlton and the Giants is actually probably the factor that helps a little bit better. With the fact that the Saints didn't win yesterday, because if the Saints won, they still would have been on 40. They would have moved to 40 points. Carlton would have moved to 40 points. Yes, the Giants would have only been 1 win out technically, but obviously the percentage between St Kilda and the Giants, it's a little bit better. Obviously St Kilda got a heavy hit to their percentage, so they're only ahead by I think 2.5%, maybe 2.7. But compared to Carlton and the Giants, in terms of the percentage, it's only 0.7, 0.7% between the two clubs. So going into the last 2 games of the season, literally, when the Giants, it's pretty simple in terms of the equation. Just got to win the 2 games. Win the 2 games, we get to 44 points. It'll be the same as Carlton. Carlton have got to lose their next 2 games as well to get out, to be any shot of being dropped out. And St Kilda also needs to lose one of their 2 games as well for the Giants to sneak in. Because if the Saints do end up winning both games, they will obviously move in with percentage. Compared to obviously Carlton and Giants, they have the better percentage of the 3 teams at the moment. But we got to win at home against West Coast, and we got to win away against Adelaide. And Adelaide obviously still fighting for that top 4 spot. They're sitting in 5th right now, only on percentage, and that's 0.2% at the moment in terms of between the 2 teams. So not ideal. And Adelaide have Freo this week as well. So it's not necessarily a situation where they can possibly win. And I think that's a Thursday or Friday night game, I think, if memory serves me right. Yeah, it's Friday night. There's no Thursday games left. In fact, the Thursday game was North Melbourne was the last one, and they ended up winning. So they were actually ended up on the same amount of points as the Giants at the end of it all, which is crazy. But it's one of those things. Adelaide almost lost to Richmond as well. Richmond played fantastically. Actually were ahead in the game in some parts of that game as well. So they weren't actually really far out of it. They just kind of shot themselves in the foot in the last quarter. And the Crows just snuck away very, very, very late into the piece. They ended up getting a goal, which kind of broke the Tigers back a little bit, but the Tigers played relatively well. The Tigers do play St Kilda on Saturday, though. So we'll say that. Hopefully we can get into a situation where the Tigers, under the guys, the son of the MCG, can win against the Saints, because that will help us in a lot, because the Saints end up having the Tigers and they end up having the Suns in the last round as well. So if they can lose against the Tigers, it'll make it a little bit better for us, especially if we win against West Coast this week, and ultimately put into a situation where the Saints will have to obviously lick their wounds and obviously not go to finals again for another season. But yeah, so Adelaide have Fremantle, Saints have Tigers, North Melbourne obviously have Geelong, so that's not ideal for them. There's a Q clash in the middle of that. Hawthorn, Collingwood, that's going to be a fantastic game there. Port Adelaide, Melbourne, and then obviously West Coast and Giants. Giants obviously at home. Doubleheader there, because obviously the AFLW season for the Giants also starts there. And then Western Bulldogs and Carlton in the middle of the day, middle of the afternoon on Sunday. That's the big game that obviously I'll be watching as well when I'm at the game at the Giants and the Eagles, or at least that's the plan anyway for now. We'll see what happens with that. And then Essendon Swans is the last game at 4:40 at the MCG. Under Marvel, under the lid at Marvel, is the Western Bulldogs and Carlton. So hopefully the Bulldogs kind of need to have a statement, because obviously they lost to North Melbourne last weekend. On Thursday, they're going to have to lick their wounds. Obviously, they also have Tim English out, which doesn't help them in that regard. But ultimately, at this point, it's funny because Carlton are going in favourites into that game, but the Western Bulldogs, they will want a situation where they kind of want to jump Collingwood or Geelong or both of them, or get into that spot of trying to fight for a home wildcard spot, because but all Geelong, Collingwood and Western Bulldogs, obviously with the other results today, like yesterday, all confirmed their spots for finals. So it's really only one spot left, which is obviously the 10th spot in the wildcard spot. And it's obviously 3 or 4 teams that are obviously fighting for it, because obviously North Melbourne, St Kilda and the Giants are all on the same points. But North, ultimately, they have the worst percentage of the 3 teams that are not in a spot where they need to win all their games left. But just makes it interesting for the Giants. Obviously, they're just going to win and then win again in week 20, round 24. St Kilda obviously have the Suns. They have them on Thursday night, so that's the last Thursday game, obviously, of the year. They don't have a Thursday game this week, which is weird. But obviously, Collingwood, Brisbane. Obviously, that game in particular will probably be for the top 4 at that point in time. If Brisbane do obviously end up winning against the Gold Coast Suns, which I expect that they will, and obviously put a decent percentage on. The Lions, if they end up winning, obviously the Crows end up losing to Freo. I think they might rest some players before the finals. They probably don't want to drop too far down though. Carlton obviously have Fremantle in the last round as well at Marvel. Melbourne and Western Bulldogs in the last round, Geelong and Richmond, and then obviously Adelaide and the Giants on the Saturday. Makes that Saturday very much one that he's very much looking forward to, because obviously at that point, by that Giants game, if not beforehand, could be obviously that Carlton game, we'll know who goes into finals and who doesn't at that point. Might even know next week, but ultimately if Carlton lose and obviously the Giants end up winning, possibly the Saints and possibly North, it could be a situation where all those teams just kind of fight for a spot at that point in time. And then obviously Essendon, Port Adelaide, Sydney Swans, North Melbourne, and then West Coast and Hawthorn to finish round 24. So not out of it. I think that ultimately it is a situation where the Giants just got to keep winning. Ultimately, the game yesterday was a big one, because even if we did lose to Adelaide, if we lost very close, we still had a chance to obviously make it. Make it harder for obviously Carlton and the Saints and that to fight us off. But the fact that we lost yesterday makes it very much a lot harder for us to make it instead of Carlton, especially with Carlton winning. We'll say with the players in particular, goals and behinds for the Giants. Aaron Cadman, top scored, 2 goals, no behinds for him, as well as Max Grueski, also with 2 goals. And then Toby Green was back for this game. He also scored 2 goals, especially one that was very, very crucial in the first half, which kind of broke the momentum of the Suns in terms of their possession, because then the game got a little bit balanced in that regard. Callum Brown, 1 goal, 2. Jake Stringer, 1 goal, 2. Harry Thomas, 1 goal, 1. Josiah Delania, he was the one that scored very much on the hooter at full time, but he scored his first goal at AFL level, so congratulations to him. Josiah, very, very good player and good to get on the score sheet. Stephen Canelio got a goal as well, very crucial goal as well. Also another one that kind of broke momentum from the Suns to the Giants in their favour. Kieran Briggs scored a behind. Riley Hamilton also scored a behind. But yeah, Jaden Laverde was out pretty early. Only ended up getting 3 disposals in that. And then Toby Bedford ended up getting 5 disposals. But yeah, he was out as well. But we'll say in the game, it was very much, in terms of the stats, 63% to 56% disposal efficiency in the favour of the Suns. 22% to 19% goal efficiency for the Suns as well. Turnovers 85 to 83. Intercepts in the favour of the Giants there. But we'll say where's the free kick count? Free kicks. Oh, it ended up being 20 all at the end of it, but quite a lot of the free kicks that went to the Suns, I feel like shouldn't have went to the Suns. There was quite a few very eyebrow-raising calls in that, especially the goal to Bailey Humphrey late in the fourth quarter for the Suns. Gets called a goal despite a tackle, comes off the back of his heel to go through, which I guess, yes, it is part of the boot. It does technically goes through, but yeah, I don't know about that call, to be honest, and obviously it's one call that kind of goes against the Giants, and it's obviously, considering it was a goal, you take that goal away, the Giants win by 4 points if everything else goes the same way. So, yeah, it's one of those things. The Giants just, could not get in front. 6 minutes, 12 seconds in front all game. So that's not great at all. But, yeah, it was just not one of those things. There was obviously 4 rush behinds and 2 touched behinds as well. So, obviously, that ended the 6. But, yeah, 1 hit the post, 2 missed on either side, 11 goals, which is great. But, yeah, it's just one of those things where we just didn't do great in that game in particular. Of course, the conditions were very hard, but some of the players really need to look at their game. Lockie Ash, I'd seen, got caught at least once or twice in terms of possession and got run down. Again, does that all the time. I don't understand why he keeps continuing to do it, because it's not helping the team. When a guy is like only 5-10 meters away from him, he's trying trying to get into a situation and be like, oh yeah, I'll run it past him, even though the guy has got momentum on him and he's running from a standing start. It's not working. It's not going to work. It's the way that momentum works, man. Physics doesn't work with that. So I'm sorry, but yeah, there's a few players that need to look at their game. He's definitely one of them, but he's not the only one. But yeah, 2-point loss to the Suns, and obviously the Expansion Cup stays in Gold Coast. I think it's the first time that Gold Coast have actually won the double over the Giants in like well over a decade, I think. We're even talking back into the situation of like the early years of the Giants and the Suns, I think, at this point in time. So, yeah, it's been a very, very long time that the Suns have won both of the games against the Giants in a season. Because usually we've either won one each or the Giants have won the two games. But yeah, it's been a while since the Suns have beaten the Giants twice in a season. So yeah, just 2 wins from 2 to make finals for the Giants, and hopefully Carlton losing 2 and the Saints losing 1. Yeah, all to play for this week coming against West Coast, and obviously next week against Adelaide in Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. So yeah, it didn't make it easy for us. All right, before the men, we go to the Liverpool women. They go to that first because they played last night, or actually played very late last night, early this morning. They did have a game against Sheffield United. Obviously, Sheffield United in the second league in terms of the WSL tiers. And yeah, it was a 5-0 victory for them in pre-season over Sheffield United. Yeah, WSL 2 opponents. So yeah, it was a pretty great performance from the Liverpool women's team. Alice Bergstrom, should say, rather. And then Vivian Enderman, obviously debuting for the Reds there in the first half. And then Maya Itamura got a double, and Izzy Breen ended up getting getting a goal as well. So it ended up being 5-0, which is great from them. We will say that the women's team also did a signing as well. And it was for a Spanish midfielder, Natalia Ramos, who I think actually, if I remember correctly, played in the FIFA World Cup for the women's competition not too long ago, in the last few, not crazy long ago, but yeah, it's pretty great in terms of that. Yeah, because the face is recognisable. I'm sure that I've seen her before. Obviously, it's subject to approval via visa, obviously international clearance and that sort of thing. But obviously, she's signed for Liverpool, and it looks like today, 2 days ago, Neve McDonald also signed her first professional contract with Liverpool FC. Obviously, 18-year-old there. So probably coming through in the junior system, and fantastic to see the women's team get some more players in. Obviously the men are in pre-season. Obviously they play at this point in time. They play tonight. So yeah, 11:30 my time tonight. Probably will be up at that time still because I do close tonight now instead of finishing at 9 o'clock. So yeah, so I should be up at least a little bit for that game in particular, but obviously we'll talk about that when I record tomorrow. But yeah, so 5-0 from the women's team over Sheffield United. Fantastic result there. Obviously a lot of the performance and a lot of the possession, I think, was in their favour as well. Doesn't give me any stats on it. The app doesn't give me any stats. Okay. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously they start in a couple of months' time as well, the women's team. Obviously the men's team will start towards the end of this month, so we'll see what happens with that. But, great performance then because they needed it, and it's looking very, very good for the Liverpool women's team in particular. And in terms of I think that's actually their first game in pre-season as well. So they've done really well to get a win and get a decisive win, and good preparation for them going into the season proper in a few weeks and a couple of months' time, I think. So we'll see how we go. Right, we did talk about the Liverpool women's team. I've got to talk about the men's team as well. Obviously, still in pre-season, at home in Anfield, in a friendly against AS Monaco. Ended up being a 3-2 loss at home, though we were up 2-1. So it actually means that, in fact, actually we're up 2-0 in this game as well. So literally, Monaco scored the last 3 goals of the game. Not a great result from Liverpool. But again, a lot of players were back for this game. Virgil van Dijk was back. Alisson Becker was back for this game. Victor Munoz ended up getting his first game, obviously, under the Reds banner. Obviously not his first proper game yet. Obviously, first preseason game. And Alexander Isak was also back for this game as well. As well as a few players, obviously, that come back from injury. Cody Gakpo, obviously, coming back recently. And there was one more, Warren Enzo. He also was back this week, I think, as well, for this game. But we are scoring the 16th minute from Alexander Isak, and Florian Wirtz ended up scoring in the 29th minute. They scored in the 44th minute. Golovin, I don't think that's how that's pronounced, but that's how it's spelt. So phonetically, that's how it's sounded. To make it 2-1 at half time. Alisson Becker went off at half time. Wataru Endo, I should have read a little bit further down in the timeline, but he went on at half time. Alisson Becker went off. They scored in the 56th minute, and then also scored in the 88th minute from Paris Brunner, very late in the game, so not ideal, but quite a few players did get some runs on, like I said. Obviously, Wataru Endo obviously was injured towards the halfway point of last season in the Premier League, so ultimately he was back, and he's back in full swing. Obviously, Virgil van Dijk was back for this game in particular. He got subbed off in the 59th minute. Victor Munoz obviously scored on the 60th minute, so it was great for him to get some momentum into his legs, some movement into his legs under the banner of Liverpool. But in terms of it, it wasn't a fantastic game. It was pretty even in terms of possession, 51.5% to 48.5% in Liverpool's favour. Shots on target, 8-6 in the favour of Monaco, 5-3 in terms of off target in favour of the Reds. So not great there in terms of defence. 4 corners for Monaco. In fact, the last goal that they did end up having in the game was off a set piece, off a corner. 6 offsides to 2 in the favour in Liverpool. For Liverpool is the 6. 9 fouls to 8. Liverpool with the 1 extra one there. In terms of discipline, 1 yellow card for Monaco. But it's not ideal. Ultimately, I hope that it is a situation that we're getting some of these losses out early during the pre-season to kind of warm us up for the actual season proper. But obviously for the women, they play on the 15th of August against Leicester City. It's another friendly for them, and obviously Como for the men's team at home. And in fact, there should be 2 games back-to-back in the space of a couple of hours for Como as well. So we'll see what happens with that, but 3-2 loss for Liverpool against Monaco, another friendly, and obviously this season getting a little bit closer week to week in terms of the Premier League, obviously going to St James Park against Newcastle United. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it is what it is. Alright, we're going to start with miscellaneous stuff. We're going to start with the Cubs. Obviously, before we talk about the series against the Dodgers and obviously the extra game against the Blue Jays, which was played this morning. Obviously, the series with the Dodgers played yesterday and the last couple of days before that. Obviously, considering that this big block was so many games in a row. Obviously, the trade deadline was Monday, so I think it was Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning for me when it finished. So we had a few trades going through, so I wanted to mention those first before we got into the games. So with pitching, obviously pitching was the biggest thing that we were looking for coming into the trade deadline, and we got some. Kevin Gausman obviously played for the Blue Jays, including obviously in last year's World Series. He's been traded from the Blue Jays to us. He was actually going to play today against the Blue Jays and said that he didn't want to. Ultimately didn't feel right, obviously, for the team. Obviously, the Blue Jays, they would know how his pitching is because obviously they would have practiced with him. He obviously knows their ins and outs as well. It just didn't feel right, especially after only a few days after he'd been traded away. So respectfully, obviously today he didn't play in his first game against them, and obviously will be in the series probably against the Royals instead. So with that, obviously he's there. We also traded for Braxton Garrett as well from the Marlins. So I think we traded over some prospects in that regard. And then Ryan Zeffajan from the Angels, we also got as a pitcher, especially in terms of being a reliever at the end and being one of those pitchers in the bullpen. We traded one prospect over to the Angels as well as Big Mo. So Big Mo is now playing for the Angels. It's sad to see him go, but ultimately he wasn't getting obviously a lot of main game time with Cubs. Obviously did pulled off some really good runs and pulled off some really good plays as well for this team in particular. But we're going to see him. We're going to miss him. Obviously, I hate to see him go. But if he gets more time with the Angels and more actual main team time, that's going to help them in the long run as well. So I feel like it is going to be a good trade in that regard. But obviously, we're trying to heat up for a wild card spot, or if we can win the division. And then obviously for the Mets, we had a 2-for deal as well. Some prospects going to the Mets, some money as well from both ends. We got Tyrone Taylor as an outfielder, and Clay Holmes, who's also in the bullpen as well. He hasn't, and I think he can also, I believe, he's one of those players that can play starting pitching as well, but also is a bullpen. So very much how Ben Brown has been for this season for us earlier this season. I feel like having a player like that would come in handy as well. I think Javier Assad as well was in the same type of ballpark with that. Baseball pun. Unintentional, but he's kind of in that situation where, he can be there as a pitcher that can relieve. Obviously, he's there as a pitcher that can obviously start as well and be anywhere in the game time for the Cubs. So ultimately, great trades as well. Sad to see obviously Big Mo go as well, but here's one of those things. Comes down to it, if this is the way that this team is going to win and try and win some playoff games and even get close to a World Series, you're just going to make some of the really hard decisions. So just wanted to start with that. Obviously, before heading into the series against the Dodgers, obviously we just come off a really, really close series loss against the New York Yankees. Obviously, we probably actually should have won against them. I don't think we could have swept them, but we should have probably won the series against them at home. So obviously this series made it a little bit harder in terms of that, obviously playing against the Dodgers. But it didn't matter because we actually won the series and we actually swept the Dodgers, which is incrediable. I don't know how. So I think the stat is at home at Wrigley Field. I think we're 6-0 in the last couple of seasons against the Dodgers, which is crazy considering, especially when they've gone back-to-back the last 2 years before that. And ultimately, I think out of the season series, I think we're 5-1, I think, or 4-2, something like that. I think we're leading the series against the Dodgers, which is crazy as well. So first game in the series in particular against the Dodgers was 10 runs to 5. Obviously, didn't start great with obviously Matthew Boyd on the pitching mound. Ended up being a 3-run home run from Tommy Edmond. So Shohei Ohtani ended up scoring, and Andy Pages as well. It's funny because the spelling of it should say it's Andy Pages, but it's not. It's Pages. So it's a 3-run home run in the top of the first. Bottom of the first, Seiya Suzuki ended up hitting a home run himself, which scored PCA as well. So it made it 3-2 at the bottom of the first. Bottom of the second, Kevin Alcantara, which actually was called up for this game and got to the game like an hour before the starting pitch of the game, ends up hitting a home run, his first home run in the big leagues, and it was a 2-run home run in the bottom of the second. Dansby Swanson ended up scoring as well in that home run, so he ended up hitting a big bomb over the fence for the first time in his career. So fantastic to see that. Put the Cubs up 4-3 in that particular play. Then Carson Kelly in the bottom of the third ended up hitting a 2-run home run himself, which made it 6-3 Cubs. Scored Alex Bregman as well. So yeah, 6-3 Cubs in the space of a couple of innings. Went from 3 down to 6-3 up. Crazy. Elysia Alfonso, I believe that's how his name is said. Phonetically, it just looks like that's how it's said. And Kyle Tucker ended up scoring, which made it 6-4. Bottom of the fifth, Michael Busch hit a home run as well. Joined the homer party, made it 7-4 in the bottom of the fifth. Top of the sixth, Teoscar Hernandez. I'm not sure if that's how his first name said. He hit a home run to left center field, made it 7-5. Carson Kelly ended up getting a challenge pitch that was overturned, and he walked. So it ended up being loaded bases at this point. So it scored Ian Happ. He scored. PCA went to third. Seiya went to second, and Carson Kelly obviously walked, so he went to third. So it made it 8-5. Michael Busch hit a single, which scored 2, which obviously scored Pete and Seiya. Obviously very fast players in terms of running. Carson Kelly went to third. Michael Busch went to second through a throwing error to Kyle Tucker, which is funny because there was a lot of boos in this game when Kyle Tucker was at the plate and during when he was in the field as well. It was made 10-5, the final score for that game in particular. And then the second game, it's 5-1. Actually played relatively well in that. In fact, Matthew Boyd did relatively well in the first game. I think I'll go over his numbers in terms of pitching. But he ended up 6 2/3 innings. He got obviously a couple of hits, obviously five runs on him, but 3 strikeouts. It's not the greatest performance that he ever had, but of course, obviously, the hitters came out to play. Second game, obviously the trade for the Dodgers with Screwball did actually work out for them. But in his debut game, which was the second game, obviously, as I said earlier, last week was the second game against the Dodgers, against the Cubs. Spoiled the party, 5-1. So top of the second, Kyle Tucker ended up hitting to left center field, hit a home run. So ultimately, of course, the boos kind of urged him on to hit a home run. Top of the second, bottom of the third, not too far after that home run, Dansby Swanson decided to homer himself to about the same spot. So made it 1-1 at the bottom of 3. Bottom of 6, Nico Horner ended up hitting a single on a ground ball, which scored Alex Bregman, put Michael Busch to second base, made it 2-1 Cubs. Then bottom of 7th, PCA hitting a single, which scored Darsby Swanson. Then Sayer ended up scoring a single, which scored PCA, which made it 4-1 Cubs. And then in the bottom of the 8th, Nico Horner decided, you know what, fuck it, gonna hit it over the fence, hits a home run left centre field, makes it 5-1 in the bottom of the 8th, and our pitching went really well in that regard. Honestly, I think Assad was in this, and he was 5 2/3 innings. Obviously, to get the 1 run very early, but kind of honed it back in after that. Got a couple of hits on him, but 3 strikeouts in general. Did really well in that game. Zevajan did pitch in this game as well. Actually looked pretty good. No strikeouts, but all of those outs for him. It was 3 outs, basically 3 up, 3 down. Obviously, a few of them hit down long, but wasn't too bad. Obviously, Zebajan come in, and Woodford actually got assigned as well. So he's out. Obviously, in terms of the Cubs, we'll see what happens with Jake Woodford, whether he stays in. The third game made it very interesting. Obviously, Alex, obviously with the Cubs, it was very, very interesting, obviously, seeing them try and get the sweep. Obviously, it's been an issue this year in terms of getting sweeps. And we didn't make it easier for ourselves. It was 7-6 at the end of it all. Though we were up 7-0 in the bottom of the 7th, and the Dodgers ended up hitting 5 in the 8th inning. So it was very, very nervous towards it. But obviously, started at the top of the first. I think it was on the 4th pitch. Let me have a look. 7th pitch. So Shota was actually pitching for this game, or at least starting pitching. 7th pitch, Shohei Ohtani, obviously couldn't keep him out of it. Just hasn't really scored too many in the series at this point. Hit 1 long, hit 1 over the right centre field, went for a home run, 1-0, the top of the first, bottom of the first. Obviously the 2 MVP candidates at the moment, obviously Shohei Ohtani on one side. PCA decided to join the party and hit a home run himself to left centre, to centre field. So made it 1-1 at the bottom of the first. So both obviously MVP prospects right now in terms of Shohei Ohtani, especially in the opening half of the season. Obviously with his pitching as well, he hasn't been pitching as much now. I think that ultimately he's been designated as a designated hitter. And then PCA has just been improving over the season and is hitting pretty decently in that. Some games obviously he goes a little bit missing, but everybody else kind of picks up a little bit on the slack. He is still getting walks. He is being a little bit better on the at home plate in terms of striking the ball, in terms of swinging at things that are in the zone and fouling it off, and actually slugging hits out and getting on base, which is the main thing, especially if you're not hitting home runs all the time. Just getting on base. Maybe someone else might hit one. You never know. It puts up, obviously, at least another run at that point in time. Dansby Swanson, the bottom of the second, hit a double, which scored Nico Horner. Made it 2-1 Cubs. Then PCA come in, hit a double as well. Dansby Swanson ended up scoring, made it 3-1 Cubs in the bottom of the second. Bottom of the fourth, PCA, thought one home run wasn't enough. Hit another one. And Tyrone Taylor, who actually started, I think, in the first game against the Dodgers, I believe, if not, obviously, the second game, also scored. So it was a 2-run home run this time, made it 5-1 Cubs. Then Alex Bregman hit a single on a line drive, which scored Seiya Suzuki, which made it 6-1 to the Cubs. Then, obviously, bottom of the seventh, there was a call from the Dodgers challenging on the stadium boundary. The call was upheld, so Nico Horner did end up hitting a double, which scored Michael Busch, made it 7-1. And then top of the eighth, this is where it kind of come crashing down, because Shota did go out, and Caleb went in terms of pitching. Max Muncy ended up hitting a 3-run home run, which scored Kyle Tucker and Mookie Betts, which made it 7-4 in the Cubs' favour. And then after that, Zevichan went in again after that 3-run home run, went in, pitched okay, and then Shohei Ohtani hit a 2-run home run with Miguel Rojas scoring as well in that to make it 7-6 Cubs. But yeah, it was very, very nerving in terms of the scoring in that last couple of innings because it was very nervous. Jacob Webb again coming in for the save at the end, getting no strikeouts but getting some good pitching in. Schroeder, obviously 8 hits, obviously got hit for that home run, but 6 strikeouts in those 5 innings that he did play, did great. Tyler Ferguson obviously come in as well, 3 strikeouts for him in his 2 innings, so great on him. Obviously, yes, getting a hit as well, but 3 strikeouts, so that's 9 strikeouts out of the game for that. Obviously, Zevichan, yes, did get hit for that run, but also 2 strikeouts for him as well. So 11 strikeouts during the game in the 9 innings that the Cubs played. So really well done from everybody on the team. Not necessarily Caleb, obviously, in terms of the runs. That didn't help in many regards, but obviously Caleb has played some good games this year. That one, obviously, those innings was not one of his best, but yeah, it is what it is. And then this morning, obviously, so swept the Dodgers, did really well. In fact, actually, at the same time, the Brewers were playing a 4-game series against the Pirates and actually did drop a game in there. They did end up winning this morning as well, so they won 3-1 in that series against the Pirates. The Pirates got pretty close in the 3rd game in particular, but they did get a win, obviously, in the series, which was great for them. In that, obviously, kind of helped the Cubs as well, with obviously the Cubs sweeping. And that's the thing. That's why I said earlier this season we need more sweeps, because you're putting pressure back on the Brewers, and the Brewers are going to sweep or win as many games as the Cubs. And if the Cubs keep sweeping, then the Brewers, to keep the margin that they are at, they're going to have to sweep teams too. And they don't necessarily. Obviously, with the Pirates, they didn't just do that. They obviously didn't do it against the Rockies. They didn't do it, obviously, in the series before that, which I think was against the Giants as well, the San Francisco Giants. They haven't gone into a situation, and the Angels, I should say, as well. They played the Angels recently and only did win that series 2-1 as well. So they're dropping games as is. So if the Cubs keep sweeping and the Brewers drop games, yes, we got that 4-game series in September, but again, that series is obviously going to look at in terms of who's probably going to win the division. But a lot of those games in that margin, if it comes into a situation where that series gets tied up at 2 apiece at Wrigley Field, some of these little games that the Brewers keep dropping and the Cubs do win, or obviously the opposite, is going to flip the division and turn out on who's actually going to win the division, who isn't. So obviously this morning, I'll add this to obviously the end of the Dodgers. They did play the Blue Jays in that catch-up game. Obviously this one got delayed because of rain. Surprised it wasn't a doubleheader, but I don't know why it wasn't. But again, 1-1 in the series between the Blue Jays and the Cubs. And it ended up being 3-2 win for the Cubs. So that means it's 4 wins in a row for the Cubs, and 5 wins out of the last 6 games. Though they had to do it the hard way. They did it in 11 innings. So they did do it in extra innings, and they actually did it the hard way really, really badly, because they were actually behind 2 runs to nothing. By the time the 8th inning rolled around, they did score 2 in the bottom of the 9th. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Top of the first, there was a disengagement violation in terms of Nathan Luke's batting in the top of the first. So he ended up actually, Kazuma Okamoto ended up scoring at home, and George Springer ended up moving to second on that, so it made it 1-0 Blue Jays. I'm guessing it was the disengagement from the pitcher in terms of Peterson. I have no idea. I would imagine that's probably who it was because it wouldn't be on the baseman. And then top of the 7th, Alejandro Kirk ended up hitting a single which scored Gaminez, make it 2-0 Blue Jays. And then the bottom of the 9th come. And they hadn't really gotten a hit at all during the game. We did end up getting 5 hits. I think we only had 1 or 2 hits at this point in time. And it was actually from the batter that actually did get these runs. Alex Bregman, on the last out of the game, said fuck it. And hit one to left center, to left field. And hit a home run, a 2-run home run, which also scored PCA. 4th pitch, pretty low in terms of the strike zone, but goddamn, he was down to his last strike as well because he'd fouled off the first pitch and swung at one that was well outside the zone on the bottom to get into a situation of a 1-2 count with the ball in the dirt previously before the home run pitch, and by God did that go. And yeah, so obviously with that, we didn't walk it off in the 9th, so it went to extra innings. We did get some more people on base in the 10th. We did get a couple of people out, especially Darcy Swanson, I think, ended up getting on base. Unfortunately, Michael Bush couldn't score, which made things pretty crazy. And then in the bottom of the 11th, after some really good pitching from Trent Thornton, he ended up getting the save in terms of the 10th and the 11th inning, I'm pretty sure. And I think Caleb actually come in either in the 9th or the 10th and to pitch as well. So he ended up doing really, really well himself. Caleb come in after Adam Cavale ended up getting into the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. Did really well, both of those guys. Thornton obviously getting a strikeout during the 11th inning, which helped us in greatly. Pitch, I think it was a ball from, ball 1 from Little to Michael Bush. Obviously the catcher caught the ball, tried to throw it when PCA was trying to go for third, obviously trying to steal third. So obviously the catcher's seen it. The ball's a little bit outside. He's gone to throw it to the third baseman. Third baseman has missed it in terms of actually catching it. It's thrown wide. He has not gotten it. So PCA ended up hitting third and obviously ran all the way to home plate to end up with a walk-off. And I think that's the 11th or 12th walk-off we've had this season for the Cubs to make it 3-2. That Seiya Suzuki ended up stealing second in that regard because he did get a hit as well. Early on, I think it was 1 out, I think, at that point when he did get one. Thank God for that. And then obviously moved to second, was going to move to third, obviously with PCA getting the run in. But yeah, 3-2 for the Cubs. So the Cubs did it the hard way. In terms of pitching, obviously Peterson obviously let in a run. But after that, 7 hits, 3 strikeouts, great from him. Robertson did well, didn't get 1 hit on him. I think he did get a walk or 2. Adam Cavale come in, 4 hits, did get hit for 1 run as well, which didn't help that, which was obviously the run in the 7th, but did get 3 strikeouts on his own as well. Caleb come in, did really well, obviously got the 3 outs that he needed to in the 10th inning. Thornton come in the 11th inning, got 1, like I said, 1 strikeout, obviously got 1 on base as well, but great from this team in particular to come back all the way back around. And it makes it really, really well rounded 4 games in a row, 4 win streak, 5.5 games outside of the division right now, and in the wildcard race, 5.5 games in that wildcard race right now. But obviously got the series against the Royals in Kansas City starting tomorrow when I'm recording this. So tomorrow, Sunday and Monday. So we'll see how it is. We'll see how we go. I think we're going to do relatively okay. But sweeping the Dodgers, feels great, especially after losing the series against the Yankees. That was always going to be something that was going to be contentious. And in fact, obviously winning the series at Pittsburgh, obviously the 3-game series there, winning 3-1 in St. Louis, obviously just losing to the Yankees at home, sweeping the Dodgers, and then obviously getting a 2-1 series win against the Blue Jays. Fantastic. I will say the pitching from both teams, in particular in this game, in the Blue Jays game, was superb. Ultimately, Adam Cease, 7 innings, 10 strikeouts. 10 strikeouts. Fantastic from him in that 7 innings. Did great. Both pitchers did really, really well. So can't complain too much about it. It is a win for the Cubs. It's unfortunate. Feel bad for the Blue Jays because their season's obviously in a little bit of shambles right now. They're still in it with a shot to make it in the wild card, but they've got to really, really work. Because they're 4th last right now. They're 3.5 games out though, so they're not completely out of it, but they got to start winning some games now. And obviously with some of their, Gosman not being there, obviously doesn't help them. And then obviously having some good hitters. They've got some good hitters there. They just need to strike while the iron's hot and just keep on a run. If they get a run of good performances, getting some wins on the board, they'll be within that wild card race really, really well in the American League. But yeah, Cubs just winning 4 wins in a row, sweep the Dodgers, get the series win and the extra game win against the Toronto Blue Jays, heading into Kansas City for a 3-game series against the Royals. Looking good. Need to play a lot better. But hopefully we can play a lot better against the Royals and hopefully win the series there. We've dropped some games against some bottom, I wouldn't say bottom feeders in terms of the wild cards, but in terms of the Royals, they're 3rd last. So they're just behind the Blue Jays in terms of the American League wild card, and 9 games out in their race for a wild card spot. So hopefully we can get some wins on the board and put some pressure on the Brewers because, that division, like I said, 5.5 games is not a lot. And obviously, like I said, 4-game series next month against the Brewers at home at Wrigley Field. It's going to come down possibly to those 4 games, but there's some games around that we've just got to keep winning. Cubs are looking good. And lastly, more miscellaneous stuff. Obviously, we've got the Cubs against the Royals, but we'll talk about that in a second because we want to do some table updates. Obviously, the Giants still in 12th position, as I mentioned when recording the spot for the Giants. I think they only just come out 11 minutes ago. P&G just signed Brian To'o as a player in their 2028 inaugural side. So he's obviously going to be on the wing for them. So that's a good signing for them. Brian To'o being there, obviously from Samoa in terms of his international play. Obviously plays for the Blues as well, and obviously the state of origin. In terms of obviously the Titans, they still are in 15th position, obviously with the Tigers getting the bye. They obviously got the 2 extra points. Brisbane did end up losing against the Dolphins. I think it's actually one of the first times the Dolphins actually have won the Battle of Brisbane. And even then, the Dragons also won. They won against the Sharks as well. So the gap between the bottom and 16th position is 6 points now. So if the Dragons end up winning 3 of the next couple of games and Brisbane lose 3 more games compared to Brisbane, if the Dragons could score like 101 points extra in those wins, they can overtake Brisbane, and Brisbane could go from the top of last year and be premiers to the bottom, and that would be hilarious, especially as a Titans fan, but ultimately just as a fan in general of the NRL, that would be absolutely hilarious to see. But ultimately we'll go over the table. Penrith end up losing to the Warriors, so they're on 36 points still. Sydney Roosters end up winning, so they're also on 36 points. So I guess that the Roosters do have to thank the Warriors a little bit for that win, because obviously the Warriors are in third position on 34. Roosters and Panthers play each other, and then the Warriors play Brisbane. I'm going to be back in a sec because I just got a delivery. Alright, sorry about that interruption. Obviously got a delivery. So yeah, as I said, Warriors have Broncos this week as well, so it kind of helps them. And then rounding out the top four is Cronulla on 32 points. Fifth position is the Dolphins, also on 32 points. So they're fighting. They're both fighting for that top four spot, which is great for both the Dolphins and a little bit for the Sharks as well. But especially the Dolphins, considering that obviously in their franchise history, which is only a couple of years old in terms of the NRL, they haven't made finals. So getting into finals and obviously making the top four would be fantastic for them. Sixth position is Newcastle Knights with 30 points. They did get a win very late against, obviously, the Raiders. The Raiders kind of blew up a little bit. Souths in seventh position. Very, very crucial win for them. They stay in seventh with 28 points, but it was very, very late. In fact, the Eels were coming back. The Rabbits were ahead by a decent amount of points, as was Brisbane in their game as well, which was the game beforehand. So both of those teams, one capitulated, the other one almost did. So it would have costed Souths, obviously, a win and a possible spot in the top 8. Obviously, and then North Queensland round out the top 8. Obviously, they won against the Titans and stay on 28 points, stay in 8th position. With the Bulldogs obviously losing to the Roosters, they dropped to 9th on 26 points. So they're still hanging around, but that loss did not help them. Though they do have obviously better for and against than the Cowboys. So we'll see what happens. 10th position, 24 points is Manly. So they're still in with a fight. Obviously for finals, and then you're rounding out the bottom. Melbourne on 22, they move up to 11th position. Obviously Canberra losing, so they drop in terms of for and against. Also on 22 points in 12th. Parramatta in 13th with 20. 14th is also West Tigers, also on 20 points. And then 15th position, obviously Gold Coast with 18. Brisbane with 18 and 16th, and then the Dragons on the bottom with 12. And then we go into the women's competition. And there was a big break yesterday because the Brisbane Broncos did actually go down to the Raiders. So the Raiders ended up losing to the Roosters very, very late in that game. I feel like it was kind of a little bit of bullshit when I did watch that game. I was like, hang on a minute, that shouldn't have happened. But they did end up winning against Brisbane, and with that, the Sydney Roosters move to the top and are the only team that are undefeated right now with 12 points. Brisbane are in second with 10. It's only just because they're for and against is so massive, though. 20 points behind them in for and against. Also on 10 points is the Titans. So the Titans are still in third and just behind the Brisbane Broncos by 20 points. But in saying that, in terms of next week, it is the Roosters and the Broncos playing each other. So ultimately, if the Brisbane Broncos do win, and do win very close, the Titans have the Dragons. So if the Dragons do end up getting belted by the Titans could possibly move into second position, or they could still hit second position, and despite obviously Brisbane getting the win, obviously the for and against with the Roosters is much better. 138 points in the positive compared to 104 for the Brisbane Broncos, and then 84 for the Titans. So if we get into a situation where we do win by a heap, we could jump Brisbane, but we won't be able to jump Sydney Roosters. but we could jump into second position next week if we do win, obviously, against the Dragons, and obviously Brisbane win against the Sydney Roosters, but only in a close one. Obviously, it'll just depend on how much we can make points back. But obviously, we'll still probably be in the top 4 with a win as well. Warriors in the top 4, in 4th position with 8 points. Then 5th is the Tigers, also on 8. Then rounding out the top 6 is Canberra with 6. Newcastle dropped to 7th, just by 4 points in their for and against. They dropped to 7th. Bulldogs in 8th, also on 6 points. Then 9th is Cronulla with 2. Then the Dragons also on 2. Then North Queensland also on 2. And then rounding out the bottom is still Parramatta with no wins on the board at the bottom with no points in terms of the NRLW. But yeah, it makes a very interesting week coming up for the Titans, as well as obviously the other 2 teams at the top of the list, being the Brisbane Broncos and obviously the Roosters as well. All right, Cubs, Royals, 3-game series, 2 wins to 1. 2 games to 1 in terms of the series win for the Cubs. So yes, that makes it 8 road wins in a row, which we haven't done as a team for a long time. I think since like I think 1915 or something like that, I think was the stat that I saw, which is crazy. And we did get a sweep or 2 in that one as well, which is fantastic. Actually, only 1 sweep, I think, in terms of that 8 series run, which obviously was the Mets. But obviously, first game 6-4 ended up being the final score, with obviously Kevin Guzman being in as he's pitching in the first game. Great from him in particular. Obviously, he did leave. He did give up 4 runs in his innings, in his 7 innings, but he did kind of round it back. One of them was a home run as well. Thankfully, he gave up 2 of the runs, rather. So he did kind of hone it back in a little bit when he got hit for that, but it wasn't too bad. In terms of scoring, Isaac Collins scored a double, which scored Carter Jensen, which made it 1-0 Kansas City Royals in the bottom of the first. Then PCA hit a single in terms of ground ball and scored Carson Kelly and Pedro Ramirez, obviously from a throwing error from second baseman, by the second baseman as well. So made 2-1 Cubs. Then Seiya Suzuki in the same inning scored a single as well, which scored Dansby Swanson, who was on third base after that hit from PCA, and also scored PCA himself. Made it 4-1. I think actually PCA, even just before that, I think stole second base as well in terms of pitching. So made it a little bit easier. Then Carter Jensen again hit a home run at the bottom of the 5th inning, make it 4-2 for the Cubs' favour. Alex Bregman, top of the 7th, hit a single, which scored PCA, made it 5-2 Cubs. And then bottom of the 8th, Pedro Ramirez hit a home run, his 2nd home run of the year, made it 6-2 Cubs. And then bottom of the 8th, I think Caleb come in to relieve, and Bobby Witt hit a single, which scored Tyler Tobert, made it 6-3, and then Salvador Perez hit a grounded out, which obviously went from third base to first base, but obviously Bobby Witt Jr. hit home plate, so obviously he scored, got an out of it, but yeah, it was always going to be a situation of either score and it going home or it getting out at first. So you take the out. Unfortunately, yes, it did make it 6-4, so it made it a little bit nervous, but thankfully they pulled off the win in the end in the first game. Second game, not as great, 6-3, so it's kind of almost the opposite result. And Clay Holmes ended up pitching to start off with in this game in particular, and he did not do great in his first game. 4 innings he ended up pitching for, 4 runs, in terms of him, one of them was a home run, 6 hits, only 1 strikeout all game. Colin Rea did go in, but he did obviously give up 2 runs himself, one of them being a home run as well. In fact, actually, if I remember correctly, it might have almost been a 2-run home run, if memory serves. But bottom of the first, Jack Caglione, pretty sure that's how that's pronounced, hit a home run on a fly ball to centre, made it 1-0 Royals. Then Josh Rojas ended up scoring 2 in the bottom of the second, which made it 3-0 Royals. Then Jack Caglione hit a double, which scored Bobby Witt Jr. To make it 4-0. Carson Kelly hit a double at the top of the fourth on a line drive, which scored Alex Bregman and Nico Horner. And Carson Kelly ended up advancing to third base from a throwing error from the shortstop, which obviously is Bobby Witt Jr. Made it 4-2 to the Royals. Ian Happ in the top of the sixth hit a home run to right centre field. Great bomb. Made it 4-3. So kind of the game was in the balance at that point. Until the bottom of the seventh, where Jack Caglione hit a home run which scored 2, which obviously was off Colin Rea. Carter Jensen ended up scoring in that. Scoring that home run, which made it 6-3, and didn't put the result completely out of the favour of the Cubs. Just the Cubs just got some hits, but didn't get any people on base to score. Left 7 on base during the game, so not ideal. And then this morning, the hits come out, ended up being 10 runs to 2 in the game today. Matthew Boyd played relatively well in terms of the Cubs. Obviously got 2 runs on him, one of them being a home run, but did great then. Only got 5 hits, 3 strikeouts for him. Zevajan ended up getting 2 strikeouts as well. Very fantastic. And obviously Javier Assad ended up coming in with an inning as well. Got 3 outs, didn't get any strikeouts, but got 3 outs in general. And with this game, it kind of was the Michael Conforto show, because he ended up getting out on a sacrifice fly in the top of the first, which scored Michael Bush, which made it on 2 outs when he got caught. Made it 1-0 Cubs. Then top of the third, he ended up hitting a single, which scored Michael Bush, and Ian Happ went to second base. So that means he got 2 runs in on his own in the first couple of innings. Nico Horner ended up hitting a single as well, which scored Ian Happ, made Michael Conforto go to second base, made it 3-0 Cubs. Alex Bregman hit a single, which scored PCA. Michael Bush went to second, made it 4-0 Cubs. Then Starling Marte ended up hitting a home run, which scored 2, which made it 4-2 to the Cubs. Alex Bregman hit a single, which scored PCA again, 5-2 Cubs. And then Ian Happ ended up hitting a home run, which scored 2-run home run. Scored Alex Bregman as well, made it 7-2 Cubs. And then Miguel Amaya come in, and in one of only 4 home runs that he's hit all year, hit a home run and scored 3, including himself. Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson also scored in that home run, but 3-run home run, which made it 10-2 Cubs at the top of the 7th, and fantastic result for the Cubs. Obviously, that puts us in a situation where we've won 8 away series in a row, which is crazy. And we stay at 5.5 games in the division. Unfortunately, Milwaukee did get 2 wins on the trot. We did get back to 4.5 games, obviously in the first game, because they did lose to the Twins, the Minnesota Twins, the Brewers, but they did win yesterday, and obviously we lost yesterday. So the game that we made back, obviously they made back in the same in the day after. So literally, 5.5 games out of the division, still well up in debate for it. And Milwaukee still stay at the top of the National League in the league with 74 and 44. Then second is Atlanta with 71 and 47, which means yes, the Dodgers dropped to third position. They lost 7 in a row. Did get a win yesterday and also lost today. So 70 and 48 for their season. And with the 2 wins, obviously, makes the Cubs in the wildcard spot by 6 games. Makes it 69 and 50 on the record at the moment. So just shy of 70 wins right now. 5 shy, obviously, in terms of wins behind Milwaukee at the moment. So that makes it interesting for them. Obviously, in terms of the wildcard race, Arizona Diamondbacks also in there, 63 and 56 in 5th position, and 63 and 56 for the Phillies in the 6th position, with wins from both of them today, including Philly, who ended up getting a win in extra innings as well. I think this one only went to the 11th inning. They had one yesterday that went to the 12th inning as well, which they did lose by a home run, a 2-run home run, and late in the 12th inning, at the top of the 12th. So not ideal from Philly, but they're still in with a shot. The Padres 1.5 games back in the wild card race. Miami Marlins 3 games. St. Louis Cardinals 3.5. Washington Nationals 4.5, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates 5.5 behind. With obviously Cincinnati being behind by 6. Mets by 11, 13.5 for the Giants, and then 16.5 for the Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies are almost pretty much eliminated, you would think, at this point in time. American League 71-46. It is Tampa Bay still on top with a 6-game win streak, I should say, as well. For them, second place 61-56 is the White Sox. In second position, Houston Astros in third with 60 and 58, though they did lose today. And then the New York Yankees in at 66 and 52. 7 games in the positive in terms of the wildcard race, though they did lose today. Boston Red Sox, 2-game losing streak for them right now, but 64 and 53 on their record, 5.5 games into their wildcard as well, should say. I think they ended up getting like a 5-game win streak as well, after obviously that record equaling win streak of their own. We did have a 5-game win streak going into obviously playing against that second game against the Royals. Obviously lost it, we got a win now today, so that's great. And then Texas Rangers are in the 6th position with 59 wins and 59 losses. In the 6th position in the American League with 1 game behind them is the Detroit Tigers. Then Minnesota Twins 1.5 games. Also Guardians 1.5 games out. Baltimore Orioles 2 games out. Seattle Mariners 3.5. Toronto Blue Jays also 3.5 games out. Then the Royals 10.5 games out. Athletics 12 games out. And the Angels being 14 games out of the wildcard race. So looking good for the Cubs. Obviously today was a very good win. And the series coming up, obviously we have the day break tomorrow. So obviously a day to reset, considering that was a huge block, 17 days of games. Obviously a few on the road as well, 10 of those games being on the road, which is crazy. Crazy time. We go to Washington to play against the Nationals, 3-game series there. Then play at home against St. Louis, and then the White Sox before our next day break, which is the 21st of August. So big couple of series coming up, especially that series against St. Louis. It's going to be very interesting to see. And in fact, actually, it's the last series against St. Louis, so we'll see how it comes to the season series between them, and hopefully we need to get into a situation of winning at least 2 or 3 of those games. If we can sweep the Cardinals at home in that last series, that's going to be great. If we get 2 wins out of 3, that'll help in the division as well, especially if the Brewers do end up losing any games coming up. But it is a situation where if we keep sweeping, and like I said, we need to get more sweeps. The reason I say that is if we keep getting more sweeps, the Brewers to stay ahead by as many games as they are, which obviously is 5.5 right now, need to sweep as well. And obviously if one team is sweeping and the other is not, the advantage is going to go to the team that is getting the sweeps. and getting more wins on the board. So if that's the Cubs, obviously that margin is going to decrease a lot. So obviously the sweep against the Dodgers was fantastic. That's something that we kind of needed as well. And then obviously getting some good wins on the board against St. Louis, obviously getting 3 of the 4, and that helped a lot. But getting to the business end of the season, obviously Washington, then St. Louis, and then obviously the White Sox. Then after that daybreak, it's Seattle for 3 games in Seattle, then Arizona Diamondbacks for 3 games against Arizona. In Arizona, I should say, before that daybreak on the 28th, and then going home to play in Cincinnati in one of the last series of the year. And then obviously Milwaukee, that 4-game series starting on the 1st of September at home at Wrigley Field, playing obviously some division rivals at home for 7 days in a row, with obviously the Reds obviously beforehand on the 29th, 30th and 31st of August, and then obviously the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th of September obviously against the Brewers. So ultimately, by that point in time, the division will probably almost be sewn up in that series in particular, almost. If Milwaukee end up getting a sweep or getting 3 games of the 4 at Wrigley Field, they're probably going to be good for the season in terms of the division. But if the Cubs get into a situation where if they split it, it's not going to be as bad. It's going to be probably better for the Brewers than it is for the Cubs if they split that 4-game series. But if the Cubs do get 3 or 4, or even somehow sweep the Brewers at home, puts the pressure on the Brewers to kind of get back, because that means with all the other games in consideration, if they don't lose any more games than the Cubs at that point in time, it's only 1 game out of the division at that point in time after that series is done. So that's why it's very important that either team gets some wins in those series. Obviously, we've got 7 games left against Milwaukee. We've got to win the majority of those to get those games back, and obviously get back into the season series as well, because obviously that sweep at the start did not help in many regards, but at least we won in Milwaukee last series round to kind of make it a little bit interesting in terms of that. But we just need to keep putting pressure on, need to keep winning games, need to put pressure on the Brewers. The Brewers are just going to keep winning themselves to stay on top. But got some games that are going to be interesting for us. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but I think that we can still make, obviously, the division and lead the division, but it's always going to be tough. So they're just going to keep hitting. Pitching's still going to be great, and we should be all right. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of How's My Team. Lots to talk about, lots I didn't expect to talk about as well. Completely forgot about the Australian Cup as well with the Wanderers. So a little bit more than I had to talk about than I thought I was going to this week. But with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this probably long episode of How's My Team. This has been my Man Tales 100. You guys have a great day night. Of course, take care.